Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, PHB upon you, and welcome back to the channel. As the title suggests, today you do witness a gripping true story, one that comes with real, unaltered video evidence. It's the harrowing journey of a lone hiker lost deep within the unforgiving wilderness of Mount Arjuno. Stay with us until the very end, before this video disappears forever. A thin wisp of steam curled from a cup of black coffee resting on a worn wooden table. In a modest roadside cafe tucked away in a bustling corner of Malang, 5 young people sat together, their laughter occasionally rising above the noise of passing vehicles. They were Bima, Rian, Sari, Leo, and Dika, a friendship thickly bound by one common thread, a shared love for hikes and challenges. But that afternoon, a single name slipped from Bima's lips, a name that, unbeknownst to them, would change their bond forever. Arjuno. Bima sighed firmly. His sharp eyes scanned his friends one by one, seeking a spark of agreement. It's time we take on something more honest. Not just another regular hiking trail. If her Purwosari is the real gateway. The atmosphere shifted subtly. Rian, sipping his warm tea, gently set his glass down. He was the most spiritual among them, always weighing every decision not just with reason, but with intuition. Arjuno via Purwosari. Bim. Rian sighed softly. Are you serious? That's not a tourist route. People say it's guarded. There are rules, strict taboos. We need to think this through. Dika scoffed from across the table. The most pragmatic of the group, he relied solely on physical strength and logic. Guarded? Come on, Yan. It's 2025 and you still believe in that stuff? What we do face are steppats and wild animals. As long as we're well prepared, there is nothing to fear. Sari, the paachemaker, tried to ease the growing tension. I think Rian doesn't mean to scare us, Dick. He just wants us to respect local customs. When in Rome, right? But Bima's idea is interesting. Arjuno has that pull. Leo, who had been quietly whipping his camera lens, finally spoke. The visuals would be insane. Temples, statues, sacred sites. From a documentary standpoint, Arjuno via Purwosari is gold. I'm in, he sighed with a broad grin, already imagining the dramatic shots he could capture. The brief debate ended with a majority swayed by Bima's adventurous spirit and Leo's artistic ambition. Rian could only sigh deeply, a strange feeling gnawing at his chest. He glanced at Bima, his childhood friend. There was something different in Bima's eyes, not just excitement, but a burning ambition, like he had something to prove atop that mountain. A creeping sense of dread tiptoed into Rian's thoughts, but he brushed it aside, trying to trust in the fate that awaited him. 3 days later, the rented jeep rolled to a stop in front of a modest home in the village of Wonorejo, the checkpoint for the Purwosari Trail. The air was colder, and the silence in the village felt thick, a stark contrast to the chaos of Malang they had left behind. They were greeted by a middle-aged man named Pak Tirto. The post guard was perching eyes were like those of an eagle. While checking their gear one by one, Pak Tirto sighed little. But his gazes seemed to peel back layers, as if seeing through their backpacks and thick jackets, as if measuring their hearts. His eyes lingered longest on Bima. Your equipment is complete, he finally sighed, his voice deep and weighty. But remember, young honest, a mountain is not conquered by feet alone, but also by the heart. Watch your words. Watch your behavior. Especially you. Your group has an odd number. Dika almost interjected with a dismissive tone, but a sharp look from Pak Tirto silenced him instantly. The odd, Pak Tirto continued, as if reading Dika's thoughts, often draws the unusual. Up there. Never feel superior. Never challenge. You are gues. Act like it. The words felt like echoes from an ancient past, an old wisdom trying to endure amid modern pride. Rian nodded solemnly, while Bima simply gave a fine smile, treating it as the usual elder advice. To him, logistical and physical preparation was everything. With the formalities complete, they stood before an unseen gate known as the forest door, Pintu Rimba. The narrow trail seemed to swallow sunlight, flanked by towering trees like silent giants. The air around them dropped several degrees. The chorus of insects that had once filled the space was gone, replaced by a pressing silence. All rigged, team, Bima called out, forcing enthusiasts to break the stillness. Let's begin our journey. Stay ticked, stay sharp. Ogal agil pick awaits. They took their first step into the forest. Rian bowed his head, whispering prayers in silence. Sari hugged her arms closer to her body, her skin crawling with goosebumps for no clear reason. And Bima, striding at the front with chest out and eyes blazing with confidence, for the first time, felt that something much greater than his determination was staring back at him from deep within the woods. The journey had begun. Their footsteps crunched over layers of dried leaves and damp earth. The first hour of hiking felt like a warm-up. Laughter still broke through the air now and then, especially from Dika and Leo who were busy arguing about the best camera angles. But the deeper they ventured into the belly of Arjuno, the more the forest seemed to demand silence. Towering trees, draped in hanging vines, formed a dense canopy that turned broad daylight into something resembling twilight. They arrived at a small clearing, marked by a large flat rock. On top of the rock lay several wilted cantil flowers and the remnants of incense reduced to ashes. This was Post 1, known among pilgrims as the sacred city of Eyang Antaboga. Let's rest here for a bit, sighed Bima, lowering his heavy backpack. Sweat trickled down his temples, but his breathing remained steady. Rian immediately soaked a spot slightly away from the sacred stone to sit. He took out his water bottle, took his eyes tight alert, scanning the surroundings. There was a strange aura about the place, solemn and sacred, making him feel uneasy. Dika, on the other hand, plopped down right at the edge of the stone without hesitation. That climb wasn't easy, Dika groaned, stretching his legs. He glanced at remnants of the offering with a skeptical look. People still do stuff like this? Instead of praying directly to the Almighty, they go through a rock. Dick, watch your words, Sari warned softly. She sat beside Rian, feeling the same discomfort. We don't know anything. Better to stay quiet and just show respect. I'm just stating facts, Sar, Dika replied. It's just a rock. Suddenly, a strong wind blew through, carrying the overwhelming scent of jasmine mixed with the earthy aroma of wet soil. The scent was suffocating in its intensity, and strangely out of place. There wasn't a single jasmine tree in sight. Even Leo, who was adjusting his tripod, paused. You guys smell that? He asked, shivering slightly. Was a perfume spilled? No one answered. They all felt it. Rian bowed his head lower, his lips moving in constant hiccup. Bima, who had seemed the calmest, now stood straight. He felt something else within that jasmine scent, a chirping cold crawling up from his feet, not from the temperature, but something that pierced through to the bone. He felt watched, as if dozens of unseen eyes were studying them from behind the dense trees. To shake off the strange feeling, Bima spoke again, this time with a firm tone. 5 more minutes. Then we move. We need to reach post 4 before it gets dark. They resumed the trek. This time, no one spoke. Each was lost in their own thoughts. The trail began to change. Thick roads crossed the path, forcing them to tread more carefully. A thin fog began descending from the peak, slithering between the trees like a massive white serpent. Visibility dropped with every step. That's when they heard it, for the first time. A woman's cry. Soft, sorrowful, and hauntingly clear. It came from everywhere at once, echoing off the trees, muffled by the mist. They all froze. Bima's heart pounded. This wasn't imagination. The sound was real. What was that? Whispered Sari, her face pale as she moved closer to Bima. Probably just an animal, Dika replied quickly, though his voice lacked conviction. His eyes darted, trying to pierce the fog. What kind of animal cheers like that, Dick? Ryan shot back sharply. That was a woman's voice. Leo aimed his external mic in the direction of the sound, trying to capture it. The audio indicator on his camera peaked. The sound was definitely there, and very close. It's right near us, he muttered, holding his breath. Bima, as the leader, knew he had to take charge. Fear was the true enemy in situations like this. Don't panic, he ordered, forcing calm into his voice. It might be another hiker lost or in trouble. We need to keep moving. Don't split up. Stay in formation. Talk hesitant. They obeyed. They walked again. Faster now, sticking thickly together. Bima in front, Dika just behind him, followed by Sari, Leo, and Ryan bringing up the rear. The cheering continued. Sometimes distant, sometimes disturbingly close, as if it moved along with them, hidden behind the mist. The fog thickened. Bima called barely Syrian behind the group anymore. They had to shout just to hear one another. Suddenly, Dika halted, making Sari bump into his back. Why do you stop? Bima asked, irritated. Look, Dika pointed ahead, his voice shaking. Bima followed his gaze. His heart nearly stopped. About 10 meters in front of them, standing in the middle of the trail shrouded in fog, was a figure. Not very clear, but unmistakably human. A woman. She stood with her back to them, long hair flowing down her back, clothed in tattered white. Her shoulders trembled as if she were sobbing violently, the source of the cry. A suffocating silence gripped the group. Even their own breathing felt deafening. No one dared move. No one dared speak. They could only stare, choked between fear and overwhelming curiosity. Then the wind returned, stronger, carrying with it a sharp, choking scent of jasmine. And in the middle of the thickening mist, the figure began to turn her head, slowly, painfully slowly, to look at him. Time seemed to freeze. The swirling mist around the figure felt like the cold breath of another world. Its head continued to turn, unnaturally, in jerky, broken movements, as if the joints had long since rusted. There was no sound of bones cracking, only a silence so loud it rang in their ears. The hearts of all 5 vehicles pounded so hard, it hurt in their chests. Finally, the head stopped, facing them directly. And in that moment, true terror gripped their souls. The face was blank. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just a smooth, pale surface like polished marble, as if the creator had forgotten to give its creation a face. A piercing scream shattered the silence. Sari screamed with every ounce of her being, pure terror in her voice, then collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Astagfirullahaladzim. Ryan cried out, his voice shaking. He dropped beside Sari, patting her cheeks with trembling hands while reciting verses in a flurry of panic. Wake up, Sar. Please, wake up. Oh Allah, protect us. Dika, the man of reason and logic, stood frozen, eyes wide, mouth agape, but no words came out. His rational mind shattered instantly. What stood before him was living proof that some things in this world defy explanation. Leo, driven by instinct as a documentarian, raised his camera. He tried to press record, but the screen showed only static, like a broken TV, accompanied by an unbearable hiss. It's not working. The camera is dead. He hissed in panic. Only Bima still stood, though his knees felt like jelly. As the leader, he knew panic was a death sentence. With the last of his courage, he forced out a shout. Who are you? No response. The faceless figure stood silently, staring at him with its terrifying emptiness. Then, in the same slow, broken motion, it raised its thin, pale hand and pointed toward a narrow path to their left, one they hadn't noticed before. After pointing, the figure slowly dissolved, melting into the thick mist until it vanished completely, as if it had been made of vapor and despair. The strong jasmine scent evaporated too, replaced by the sharp, earthy stench of wet soil. Silence returned, this time heavier, more threatening. Panic took over. Dika, the first to recover from shock, lunged at Bima and grabbed his jacket collar. His eyes were bloodshot, a mix of rage and fear. "This is all your fault," he roared. "False horse. Your crazy idea to take this path. Look what's happening now. Let go of me, Dick." Bima shoved him off. He didn't know this would happen at her. "You should have listened to Ryan. We never should have come here." Dika kept screaming, fear spilling out as fury. "Enough!" Ryan shouted, still trying to revive Sari. "Fighting won't help us. We need to leave, now." In their panic, they made a fatal mistake. Without thinking, Bima decided to press forward, desperate to escape the cursed place. Dika, still consumed by anger, followed closely behind, while Leo helped Ryan carry Sari, who was still half conscious. They rushed blindly through the mist, no longer paying attention to trail markers or ribbons on trees. Their only goal was escape. After several minutes of running, they stopped to catch their breath. The mist remained just as thick, perhaps even denser. Bima looked around, and a chilling truth hit him. The trail was gone. Surrounding them were only identical trees and thick underbrush. They were lost. Leo pulled out his phone, clinging to technology. "No signal. GPS won't lock in," he reported hopelessly. Bima took out a compass. The needle spun wildly, refusing to point in any direction, like the magnetic field itself had gone mad. They were completely cut off from the outside world. Guilt and fear crashed into Bima like a wave. This was his responsibility. The confidence he broke from the city had crumbled, leaving behind a frightened young man. He had to decide. Returning to that cursed spot was terrifying, but staying put would only waste time and energy. Then, his eyes caught something. Between two massive intertwined banyan trees, a dark corridor appeared, like a narrow trail, almost hidden. A flicker of hope lit in his chest. "Ere," he sighed, pointing. "That looks like a path. Let's take it." "Don't, Bim," Ryan sighed instantly. His gut screamed danger. "I have a bad feeling about that place. It's too dark, too quiet. We don't know where it leads. Maybe we should try to backtrack. Carefully. Back to that thing." Bima snapped, frustration thick in his voice. His pride couldn't accept retreat. Couldn't accept that he had made a mistake. "No, we're not going back. We move forward. I'm sure this is the way." Without waiting for agreement, Bima stepped boldly into the dark corridor between the two banyan trees. The others, not wanting to split up, reluctantly followed. They walked in silence, their flashlights barely piercing the choking darkness. The air was damp and cold, reeking of rotting leaves and something metallic, almost like blood. The path sloped downward and became increasingly muddy. Suddenly, Leo, just behind Bima, stopped. He pointed his light at the ground, voice trembling. "Bim, wait." Bima turned. "What now?" Leo didn't answer. He just aimed his flashlight at a specific spot in the mud. They all gathered around the beam. Ere, clearly visible in the wet soil, were footprints. Massive ones, far too large for a human, with long, narrow toes. And most disturbingly, there was only one set of prints, as if whatever made them had only one leg, or walked in a way none of them could comprehend. They looked at each other, pale and speechless. They realized they weren't just lost. They were following something. The silence after finding the footprints was more terrifying than any sound. The air felt heavy, laden with unspoken questions. Move forward or turn back? Face the unknown horror ahead, or return to the terror they had just escaped. Dika was the first to break the silence, his voice trembling with a mixture of anger and fear that bordered on madness. "We're going back," he said. "I don't care. Ide rat her face that ghost woman again then followed the deathless footprints into who knows what. Back. Leo replied, his voice barely audible. Back into that blind fog? We don't even know the way anymore. We dua just kept going in cheer class. Bima sighed nothing. The weight on his shoulders felt like a mountain. Every option seemed like a path to destruction. His decisions had broke him to this point, and now he had no answers. His confidence had evaporated, leaving behind a void filled with regret. That's when Ryan stepped forward, clutching himself between them. His face was pale, but his eyes carried an eerie charm. Stop, he sighed, softly but firmly. Panic will only get us more lost. Anger will drain our strength. We stop here for a moment. We calm our minds. We pray. Ask for guidance from the giver of life. But before Ryan could finish his sentence, a sound from behind froze their blood. It came from the dark tunnel they had emerged from. Not a woman's cry, not a whispering wind. It was a low, guttural growl, the sound of a hungry predator. No orders were needed. Primal instinct took over. The decision was made for them. With panic choked in their throats, they ran. They ran forward, the only direction left, following the mysterious footprints, away from the growl that seemed to draw nearer. The dark tunnel finally ended, opening to a sick that made them stop once more. They stood in a strange, sunken valley. The sky above was blanketed with thick fog, yet the valley itself was lit by an eerie green glow. That light came from moss clinging to the twisted trees and stones, glowing faintly like embers from another world. The trees were thin and leafless, their bony branches reaching upward like skeletal fingers clawing at the sky. But the strangest thing of all was the atmosphere. Silence. Absolute silence. No chirping of insects, no birdsong, not even the rustle of wind. A dead silence. Where are we? Sari whispered, her body shaking violently. Wet her from cold or fear, no one knew. Bima tried calling out, hoping for an answer, or at least a normal echo. Hello! He shouted at the top of his lungs. His voice vanished into the silence, and then a reply came. But it wasn't an echo. It was a whisper. Hundreds of faint whispers, hissing like snakes, repeating his word mockingly. Hello, lo, lo, lo. The whispers came from every direction, bunching off the dead trees and glowing stones, as if the entire valley was lounging at them. They tried calling out again, shouting each other's names, but the result was the same. Every word returned as a distorted whisper. The valley of echoes without sound. Time passed without them noticing. Fatigue, hunger, and thirst began to gnaw at her bodies and minds. Bima decided to check their supplies, and a new bitter truth emerged. Their water was nearly gone. Each of them had only a few sips left in their bottles. That reality became the spark that ignited new paranoia. Dika shot a sharp look at Leo, who appeared the most energetic among them. Your bottle seems fuller than ours, Dika accused with a raspy voice. I've seen you drinking more than Anyone, pretending to check your camera. What are you implying? Leo snapped back. I drank the same as you. Look for yourself. He held up his bottle, which indeed had only a little left. Don't lie. We're all exhausted. Why do you still look fresh? Dika pressed. His eyes reddened. Enough. Stop it. Bima barked, pointing fingers won't create water. But in his heart, the same seeds of suspicion had begun to sprout. He started to look at his friends differently. Then, in the thickening despair, they heard something. Very faint at first, but growing clearer. The sound of trickling water. A dying hope reignited. Burning fierce. Water. The sound of life. Without a second thought, driven by burning thirst, they ran toward the source. They pushed through dry bushes and leapt over moss-covered roads. Only Ryan lagged behind. Wait, he shouted. Be careful. This feels wrong. Why would there be water in a place so dead silent? But no one listened. Thirst had overruled their reason. They finally reached the source. A small stream flowed gently over smooth, black stones. In the midst of a valley radiating death, the stream looked like an oasis of paradise. Water! Thank you, Allah! Dika cried out hysterically. He dropped to his knees at the riverbank, cupped his hands, and was ready to drink deeply. The otters cheered in relief, pulling out their empty bottles, eager to refill their hope for survival. But Bima, standing closest to the water's edge, froze. His flashlight cut through the surface and chalked a fine glint at the bottom of the stream. Curious, he reached into the itchy water. His fingers brushed against a thin, stiff object. He pulled it out. It was coated in a thin layer of mud, but Bima recognized it immediately. An ID card. With trembling hands, he wiped the mud away. The photo was faded, most of the writing scratched off. But one name was still clearly readable. The name belonged to a hiker reported missing on Mount Arjuno 2 years ago, never found. Bima slowly lifted his head, looking at Dika whose cupped hands filled with clear water were now inches from his lips. The hope that had just bloomed in their hearts turned instantly to ice. They had found water, in a place where others had found their end. Don't drink. Bima's hoarse and desperate scream tore through the brief euphoria. He threw the wet ID card onto the ground, landing it right in front of Dika. The small object hit the moss with a soft slap, but to their ears, it sounded like the blast of a cannon. Dika froze, clear water dripping between his fingers. He stared at the card, then looked up at Bima, utterly confused. The others gathered around, their eyes fixed on that tiny object now at the center of their dread. Whose card is that? Sari asked, her voice trembling. Leo crouched down, illuminating the card with his flashlight. As the one who always did the most research before every hike, he recognized the name instantly. His face turned deathly pale. Fajar Nurjaman, Leo whispered. He was the hiker from Jakarta. Reported missing 2 years ago. They never found his body. A suffocating silence fell over them. The water that moments ago looked like a heavenly gift now appeared as deadly black poison. They stared at the stream again with new eyes. The dark stones beneath the surface now resembled ancient bones blackened with time. The once tranquil water now seemed to conceal a dark and silent curse. Dika, overcome with frustration, screamed in rage. He no longer cared about ghosts or mysterious footprints. All he felt was burning hopelessness. He slammed his fists into the water's surface, shattering its charm into ripples. So what do we do, then? He yelled, his voice echoing into strange, warped whispers through the valley. Die of thirst here. As if Dika's outburst was a trigger, the valley began to stir. The pale green glow from the moss around him started to pulse, slowly at first, then faster and brighter, like the heartbeat of some invisible giant beneath the earth. And the whispers returned. Stronger, and this time personal. These were not mere echoes anymore. They were the voices of their own deepest fears. For Bima, the whisper sounded like his father's mocking tone. Violet leader. Look at your friends. They do the because of your stupidity. For Dika, it mimicked the true laughter of his friends. Weakest one. The coward. You do a bit the first to be left behind. For Rian, who was praying silently, the voice twisted into a demonic scoff. Your prayer is empty. No one is listening in this valley. Allah has forsaken you. For Sari, it was her own scream, loping endlessly, forcing her to relive her terror over and over again. For Leo, the whisper stabbed at his ambition. Votage worthless. No one will ever see it. You do vanish like Fajar. The psychological onslaught was unbearable. They clutched at her ears, but it was useless. The voices weren't coming from outside. They echoed within their own skulls. The pulsing green light quickened, triggering nausea and dizziness. We have to get out. Now. Bima screamed, more to himself than anyone else. They turned away from the cursed stream and ran, climbing the steep incline, desperate to escape the pulsing light and the tormenting whispers. As they scrambled up the slippery slope, a new sound rose from behind them, from the direction of the river. A dragging, wet slit hair. Like something heavy, massive, howling itself from the mud. None of them dared to look back. They only ran faster, hearts pounding to the limit. Terror gave them strength. They slipped, fell, scrambled up again, pulling each other, driven by one primal instinct, survival. In the kiss, Bima's eyes choked a dark crevice in the rocky cliff above. A chave mood. It was a bad idea, a potential death trap. But right now, it was their only visible shelter. To the chave! Bima shouted, voice nearly drowned by the whispers. They climbed with their last ounce of strength. The dragging sound behind them grew closer, joined by a hissing noise that made their skin crawl. Just as Dika, the last in line, jumped into the chave entrance, a high-pitched screech echoed behind them. Whatever was chasing them had reached the chave, but it seemed unwilling or unable to enter. They crawled deeper into the darkness, away from the chave mode that now felt like both an exit and a threat. Their breathing was ragged, their bodies trembling. They were safe, for now. With a shaking hand, Leo turned on his flashlight to inspect their refuge. The beam first landed on the pale, dirt-covered faces of his friends. Then, he slowly aimed the light at the chave wall. Their hearts, which had just begun to calm, clenched ticked once again. The chave walls were not bare. They were covered in ancient drawings made in red ochre. Primitive, yet vivid, telling a story. The first image showed small human figures kneeling before a towering being. This creature stood by a river, with one massive foot and long dangling arms. The same entity was a footprint they had followed. In another drawing, the being was shown dragging humans into a hole in the cliff, a chave. Leo's breath hitched as he aimed the light at the final, largest image. It depicted the inside of the chave. The small humans huddled in fear. But they weren't alone. In the back of the chave stood another creature. Smaller, on all fours, covered in many eyes. Just as their gazes locked on that disturbing image, a new sound shattered the silence. Not from outside. From within the chave's deepest shadows. The sound of a pebble skittering across stone. They were not alone. They had escaped one predator, only to crawl straight into the lair of another. The sound of tumbling gravel came to an abrupt halt, but its silence echoed even louder inside their minds. Something was there, hidden in the pitch-black darkness behind them. Something that had been waiting. Everyone held their breath. A cold, sharp fear pierced from the base of their spines to the tips of their fingers. They were trapped in a perfect nightmare. Outside, at the mouth of the chave, the furious guardian of the valley lurked. Inside, in the chave's depth, a new presence had just made itself known. Leo, whose flashlight was still on, was trembling uncontrollably. He didn't know what to do. Pointing the light behind him meant seeing the source of the terror. Turning it off meant surrendering completely to the darkness, with the creature in it. Leo, the flashlight, Bima whispered, his voice dry and barely audible. Pound it back. Slowly, slowly. In this situation, a horror you can see is better than one you can only imagine. With hands that felt like solid lead, Leo began moving the beam. The trembling circle of light shifted slowly across the chave wall, swept over the damp stone floor, and then crawled up into the void. The light first revealed a pile of bones in the chave's corner. Some looked like animal bones, but among them were unmistakable human remains. This was a graveyard. A slaughterhouse. Bima's heart sank. The flashlight continued to scan. And then, it choked it. Not a full form, but two tiny, glowing dots that gleamed like green phosphorus. Yes. A moment later, two more dots appeared beside them. Then another two. 6 glowing eyes shimmered in the darkness, reflecting the beam with a cold, unfailing glint. The creature shifted slickly, revealing its grotesque silhouette. Its body was low to the ground, covered in a hard, armor-like shell that resembled a giant insect's carapace. It had many thin legs, moving in jerky, twitching motions. A fine chittering echoed from the darkness, like 1,000 crickets rubbing together, a sound filled with hunger. The creature did not attack immediately. It hesitated, seemingly dazzled by the flashlight. Realizing this, a flicker of hope sparkled. Light! Turn on all the lights! Bima shouted. Instantly, Dika and Ryan switched on their headlamps. 3 beams now blasted toward the creature. Sure enough, it hissed furiously, its 6 eyes narrowing in pain, and it retreated a few steps, vanishing into the deeper shadows of the cave. They had found a weapon. Light. But relief was short-lived. Bima glanced at the battery indicator on his flashlight. Only 2 bars remained. Dika and Ryan's headlamps weren't new either. They had no idea how long the lights would last. Their safety now had a ticking clock. With every second that passed, their batteries drained, and the creature crept closer. Outside the cave, the gardiner's growls and clawing still echoed. Occasionally, the massive beast let out a frustrated roar that made the walls tremble. They were trapped between two nightmares. We have to get out of here, Dika sighed in panic. I'd rather face that beast outside than sit here waiting to die when our lights die. Go out and get mauled instantly. Leo shot back. That's suicide. Then what? Just sit here and pray. Dika snapped, glaring at Ryan who was still mumbling a quiet prayer. At least I'm not making it worse. Ryan fired back, his patience running thin. Enough. Saria's weak voice cut through the argument. She pointed with a trembling finger toward the cave entrance. Listen, the sound outside. It stops every time this thing in here makes noise. They all fell silent, straining their ears. Sari was right. Each time the creature inside made a clicking or hissing sound, the gardiner's scrapping and growling outside immediately paused, as if listening intently. A wild and terrifying idea crept into Bima's mind. These 2 creatures weren't allies. Maybe they were territorial rivals. The cave belonged to the crawler, and the guardian respected it, or feared it. A reckless, deadly plan began forming in his mind. A gamble with their lives on the line. We can use them, Bima sighed quietly. Use them? What do you mean? Leo asked, confused. We lured the thing in here out, Bima explained, his eyes glinting with a hint of madness. If it comes out, maybe the Valley Guardian will be distracted. Eduafik, that's when we make our run. Silence. The plan made sense. And sounded completely insane. How do we lure it? Dika asked. It's afraid of light. We have to offer it something it wants more than it fears the light, Bima replied. We need bite. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a last pack of dried jerky. We tossed this near the entrance. Maybe the smell will draw it out. But Dika laughed bitterly. A laugh that sounded more like a sob. Bite? He sighed, staring at Bima with empty eyes. Look at the bones in the corner. Bim. You think that thing eats jerky? It doesn't want dried meat. It wants fresh meat. That sentence hung in the cold air, stabbing each of them with a brutal realization. They all understood what Dika hadn't dared to say or trick. To lure a real predator, the bite had to be real. The bite had to be alive. They looked at each other under the dimming lights. Their friendship had dissolved. Their unity had shattered. All that remained were 5 frightened individuals, and a terrible question no one dared to ask out loud. Who among them would beat the bite? The silence inside the cave was heavier than the mountain stone above them. That dreadful question hung in the air, puzzling whatever truth remained between them. Each person glanced at the others, and in their friends' eyes, they sallallahu alaihi wasallam the same flicker, the primal glint of a creature desperate to survive, no matter the cost. Dika gave Sari a quick glance. Bima clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white, while Leo kept busy checking his flashlight, avoiding everyone's gaze. Amid the suffocating stillness, Ryan, who had been silently prying, slowly lifted his head. His face was pale and exhausted, yet his eyes radiated a strange peace, the charm of Someone who had surrendered. "I'll do it," he sighed softly, but his voice echoed clearly through the cafe. "Let me beat the bite." All eyes snapped toward him. "Don't be crazy, Yan!" Bima shrieked, guilt rushing down on him like a wave. "This is all my fault. I should be the one." "This isn't about blame anymore, Bim," Ryan interrupted gently. He looked at each of them in turn. This is just my path. My fate. If I committed many sins, this can help me redeem a small part of them before Allah. He handed Sari his water bottle, still holding a little water. "Drink. You do need strength to run." No one could speak. Their protests were choked in their throats. Deep down, in their fearful and selfish hearts, they knew this was their only chance. Ryan stood slowly. He took a deep breath, then looked toward the darkness behind him, where the six-eyed creature was hiding. Then, he turned and began walking toward the mouth of the cafe. He did run. He walked deliberately, letting his footsteps echo, announcing his presence. "Ryan, no!" Sari sobbed, but her voice was too faint. The creature stirred in the shadows. The scraping and clicking grew louder. It had spotted its prey, alone and vulnerable, moving away from the main source of light. Its hunger began to outweigh its fear of illumination. "La ilaha illallah!" Ryan shouted, his voice ringing through the cafe. It wasn't a scream of fear, but a cry of surrender. As Ryan reached the mouth of the cafe, the creature could no longer contain itself. It surged forward, a blur of shadow rushing with terrifying speed straight at him. At that same moment, the guardian of the valley outside the cafe, perhaps sensing a trespasser at the edge of its territory, let out the most furious, ear-splitting roar they had ever heard. It charged toward the cafe from the outside. Two nightmares collided at the threshold. What followed was a battle from hell. The guardian's high-pitched shriek clashed with the cafe monster's vicious hisses. The sounds of claws tearing through flesh met the track of breaking exoskeleton. Chaos, pure and terrifying, exploded into sound and shadow. "Now!" Bima shouted. That was the signal. They killed their lights and, in total darkness, felt her way toward the side exit they had seen earlier. A narrow gap just wide enough for one person at a time. One by one, they squeezed through, emerging back into the pale green glow of the valley. None of them dared look back. None of them wanted to see what happened to Ryan. They just ran. Ran with everything they had, away from the monstrous battle behind them. Tears mixed with sweat on their faces. Every step grew heavier, not just from exhaustion, but from soul-crushing guilt. They ran until the sounds faded, until their lungs threatened to burst. Finally, they collapsed, trembling, on moss-covered ground, far from the cursed cafe. They were alive, but they were broken. Sari sobbed uncontrollably, calling Ryan's name over and over. Dika sat in stunned silence, staring into nothing, his pride shattered, leaving only a hollow shell. Leo realized his camera was gone, lost somewhere during their escape, and oddly, he didn't feel anything. Bima knelt, pounding the earth with his fists, torn apart by regret. And then, when their despair had reached its peak, something miraculous happened. The thick fog that had cloaked the valley slowly began to lift. Through the dead canopy above, a golden beam of light pierced through. Down. The morning sun seemed to carry a divine power. The glowing moss dimmed. The whispering voices vanished. And before them, a path appeared, marked with faded red ribbons. The trail they had searched for all along. As if the mountain, having climbed its sacrifice, having accepted its price, was finally letting them go. With what little strength they had left, they staggered forward along the path. No one spoke. They walked in heavy silence, every step haunted by the friend they had left behind. Hours later, as our team found them during a routine sweep. Emertirto at the registration post had reported them missing when they did return on schedule. That day, 4 hikers made it down from Mount Arjuno. They were taken to a hospital, treated for dehydration, hypothermia, and severe shock. But their past wounds would never be healed by any doctor. When asked about the 5th member of their group, they could only cry, and tell a story no sane mind would believe. Our team searched for weeks, but Ryan was never found. He had become part of Arjuno's eternal mystery, like Fajar Nurjaman and so many other names before him. Months later, Bima stood alone at the foot of the mountain, gazing at its towering peaks shrouded in clouds. He had come to Arjuno seeking challenge, seeking to prove his strength. But the mountain had given him something far more valuable, a lesson in humility, in friendship, and in sacrifice. He survived. He lived to see another dawn. But he knew he had paid a price no sunrise could ever repay. A price he would carry for the rest of his life. The journey of Bima, Ryan, Sari, Leo, and Dika has reached its final chapter. What began as an adventure filled with excitement and a hint of arrogance, ended as an eternal lesson about life, death, and the greatness of the Creator. The 4 souls who descended the mountain were not the same as when they climbed it. They returned carrying the emptiness left by their friend Ryan, yet also bearing a profound understanding, purchased at a great cost. Ryan's sacrifice became a turning point, a dawn that rose after the longest night of their lives. But no matter how bright the dawn, it could never erase the haunting shadows of the valleys and caves they had passed through. Connection with the teachings of the Quran. The ordeal faced by Bima and his friends, especially how they strayed so far from the true path, deeply reflects a verse from the Holy Quran, which warns of the consequences of arrogance. Allah says in Surah Al-Araf, verse 146. Translation. I will turn away from my signs those who are arrogant upon the earth without right, and even if they see all the signs, they will not believe in them. And if they see the path of guidance, they will not take it, but if they see the path of error, they will take it. That is because they have denied our signs and were heedless of them. This verse serves as a mirror to their story. Arrogance on earth. Bima and Dika's initial arrogance, disregarding Patirto's advice and the mystical warnings, was a form of pride. They believed their physical strength and logic were enough to conquer the mountain. Unaware that they were meregues on the land created by Allah. Turned away from signs. Due to their arrogance, Allah veiled their sight from the signs of truth. They were blind to the warnings. Ryan's caution was ignored, and Sari's uniasi feelings were dismissed. Choosing the path of misguidance. When faced with choices, they consistently took the wrong path. Like when Bima chose to enter the path between the twin banyan trees, or when panic led them to scatter aimlessly after seeing a faceless apparition. They chose the path of misguidance because their hearts were clouded by fear and ego. Lessons and wisdom to reflect upon. From this tragic story, there are several deep lessons that we can all reflect on. Humility before nature. One of the core messages is the importance of humility. Mountains, oceans, and nature are not arenas for ego and domination, but realms to reflect on the majesty of Allah and realize how small and fragile we truly are. Bima chame to conquer, but left having been conquered by wisdom. Strength in fight and trust in the Creator. Ryan's character saw that when logic fails and strength fades, the only thing left is fight. His surrender, tawakul, was not a sign of weakness but the peak of courage. His self-sacrifice professed that unwavering belief in the Creator gave him the strength to do what others could not. Respecting local wisdom and traditions. Disregarding elders, warnings and ignoring local taboos often leads to disaster. These unwritten rules are not mere folklore. They are distilled from generations of experience and serve to instill respect and caution in outsiders. Trials reveal true friendship. In moments of crisis, true character is revealed. Their friendship was tested by suspicion over a bottle of water and the horrific decision of choosing who would Bechome bite. But through that same trial, the highest form of friendship was shown through Rian's selfless sacrifice.